Hello and welcome to Politics Today. I'm Farooq Pitafi. Because every time you look, you're surprised. When the current government took over, it made it clear that it wants only peace in the region. The Prime Minister of Pakistan categorically said that if India, you are going to take one step, we are going to reciprocate by taking two steps. His vision stands today. It is where it is. I mean, Pakistan is building bridges first with China, now Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Malaysia, other countries of the region. But surprise, surprise, India remains churlish. On one side, once again, yesterday, Prime Minister reminded India of his vision of a peaceful, coexisting, and prospering region. On the other side, India keeps on behaving pretty immaturely. We have seen their media, we have seen their leaders, the way they couldn't handle our Prime Minister's message of peace yesterday is mind-boggling. Usually it is thought that rising powers, great powers, or self-proclaimed superpowers behave better when it comes to diplomacy. They know how to handle such issues. But it seems that under Modi government, the hate environment and the war hysteria is such that even if they want to, they cannot solve the problem. They cannot step aside. So today we are going to talk about Pakistan's vision of economic cooperation in the region elsewhere. And we are going to talk about Indian role in sabotaging that as well. We have seen what India has been doing. We have seen what Ajit Doval said in the past few days and earlier before taking over as well. And we have seen how India keeps on playing to the gallery. In order to help us understand these issues, we are joined by Ambassador Zamir Akram Saab, a senior career diplomat, also one of my favorite writers. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. Next to him is Isa Naqvi, a senior journalist, but a young one as well. Thank you very much for being part of the program. The third guest is sitting at this moment. The moment he takes a seat and he's plugged in, I'm going to introduce him as well. Meanwhile, okay, let me welcome Brigadier retired Tipu Sultan. He's a defense analyst. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. Zamir Akram Saab, I have to start with you, sir. What do you make of India's attitude following the Prime Minister's speech?
Well, I think that, as you said, the word is correct. Their reaction has been very churlish.
Yeah.
And this is a curious mixture of arrogance and impotence at the same time.
Okay.
Arrogance because they think, as you have mentioned, themselves as a great major power of the world, or at least a regional superpower or whatever. But at the same time, they feel that there's nothing that they can really do to carry out the kind of threats that they have been making against Pakistan after this Pulwama incident. And so that's really why the Indian reaction has been to not only reject the offer by the PM, but to reject it in a way that is hardly you would call diplomatic.
Yeah, it is not even hardly diplomatic. It is beyond.
So I think that
bad.
That's the reason is that for years since the Modi government has been in power, they have, or Mr. Modi himself has created this frenzy against Pakistan in order to promote his political interests domestically. And he has used this anti-Pakistan platform as one of the means of doing that. The other is, of course, anti-Muslim and anti-Islam against his own people, those who live there. And then the third is to show a more robust, muscular policy in occupied Kashmir, which is why a lot of Kashmiris have been subjected to untold repression and suppression.
And they are being attacked as we speak, even now.
And so now none of this has really worked for Mr. Modi, which shows which is demonstrated by the fact by the recent elections that were held when the Congress party did better. And then that since he is facing elections in this year, he needs to be seen as being extremely powerful and carry the kind of weight and gravitas that he claims that he has.
And it doesn't seem to be
but it's not working.
Right.
So I think that's the whole combination of these factors.
It's actually a lethal combination when it comes to life of any nation. But let me bring you in, Isa Naqvi. I mean, I can understand what goes on among politicians. I can understand how a defense establishment of a country or ex-military men behave in a certain situation. What has gone into Indian media? It seems to have lost all decency.
Frankly, it isn't just about Pakistan. If you just see that the pattern that it follows, the game of TRPs, it makes them do all these childish things. I've been to India like about 9 times, and I've traveled extensively, and I've interacted with their media. I've got friends there as well.
Did you get an opportunity to interact with the common Indians as well?
Exactly, and
they are peaceful or they are hate mongers?
Majority is like crosswise opposed to what we actually see on the TV screen.
So how do you reconcile the TRPs with the people's consumption? That means somebody is feeding the wrong line.
This is exactly the problem that India, the state, as a state, they are sponsoring hatred against Pakistan.
Okay.
And why do you actually see that happening exactly when the elections are nearing?
And it doesn't hurt that you have among friends, people like Ambanis and Tatas and Adanis who can buy the entire news channel if you are opposing them.
Yeah, and you see the timing of this incident. I do want to mention that here, that like why this Pulwama thing happens and who's the beneficiary. If one has to believe the thesis that is being built by India, that the state of Pakistan, their immediate neighbor, is behind. Let's just talk about who's the beneficiary here. Now, this incident happens precisely when the Saudi Crown Prince was due in Islamabad. This happens precisely when FATF was to consider taking Pakistan out of the grey list.
And
this happens precisely when the Kulbhushan Yadav's hearing was due in the International Court of Justice. This happens precisely when Pakistan's team was to visit India to carry forward the discussions on the draft proposal for making of Kartarpur corridor. Now, and this happens precisely when the Modi government is like going towards actually.
It hardly suits us. It doesn't suit us. It benefits the other side a lot. And yet we are the bad guys. Is it what you are saying?
Exactly. You would
but very
see the
cleverly.
Yes, you see the pattern.
I'm grateful that you have said what you have said, but you very cleverly sidestepped the issue of media. And I'm going to come back to that as well. And let me go to Brigadier Saab, Brigadier Tipu Sultan. Sir, your take on how India has reacted or responded to Prime Minister's, hand of friendship in yesterday's speech. And then I have to ask you about analyzing the Indian former soldiers as well. For example, there's this guy with the very strange mustache called General Bakshi, and he goes bonkers, starts using abusive language for his own people. So please, go ahead.
I think the Indian hallucination about a misperception about Pakistan and the whole region and to themselves stems from the BJP, which is a political wing of RSS and Bajrang Dal and their Sangh Parivar, as they call it.
Yeah.
And their concept has been, when they snatched power from Congress, that they got to get the pure Hindu population together, which is divided by Muslims and other minorities there, and if they can get that, they will be able to win the elections. They were successful in that. But in the process, what they have destroyed is the Indian fabric, and it's a great country with a great culture, history, and a multilateral sort of a legacy that they had, and they have destroyed that. And they have created a frenzy, as Ambassador Akram has very rightly pointed out, from which they are unable to retrieve themselves.
Right.
And the Indian media is telling Modi to walk the talk. Okay. He has been delivering speeches of teaching lessons to Pakistan, stopping the water and whatnot. Such an irresponsible leader of such a huge number of people, comprising of a large country like India in 20th century, it is absolutely amazing.
Right.
And in the position that their leaders have put the Indians to. I think the Indians have been in a state of self-denial. They have not been seeking reason, and they have been using aggression, killing, arson, looting, rape as an extension of their political policy against the minorities, and it has not worked with them.
Right.
What has changed here in the subcontinent is the government in Islamabad. I think if you really look at it and you should really analyze what Imran Khan said in the video speech, it's something very interesting. And he said that whenever we want to talk to Indians, they said, oh, there's terrorism, we don't want to talk to you.
Yeah.
And here is Imran Khan, in one simple sentence, he said, okay,
let's do
let's
it.
talk about terrorism. And you know, when they talk of terrorism, Pakistan can always tell them that your Ajit Doval has been telling that he has been spending $800 million to destabilize Pakistan.
Right.
And he has been given all the policy, and these are the facts that we have. What do you have against us?
Yeah.
So they will not be comfortable on that also.
Under the present government or under any government? India will not be comfortable talking to us.
India has created a Hindu fundamentalist Indian state, in which the Sikhs are alienated, not only Muslims. The Christians are alienated because they have been burning their churches. When Clinton came, something like 2002 or I don't remember the year, they carried out the killing of Chatti Singhpura or Chatti Singhpura as you call it. They killed 40 odd Sikhs over there, and Sikhs know it that it was carried out by Raw.
Right.
All the actions that they've been taken against the parliament, in Bombay attack, in the Pathankot, it is their own doing. And there are officers on record saying that we did it, like that colonel who burned that train. So, if you go a little back, in 71, they hijacked their own plane to Sialkot. F-27 Friendship is called Ganga.
Yeah.
So I think, as the Italians call it, is a case of casus belli. You hurt yourself, make a reason for war, and blame somebody else. And
So
this has been a fashion in the West also. A lot of people talk about 9/11, that it was a pretext to have a policy what the Americans told of that. What I want to tell you is that
I'm going to come back to you. Allow me to go back to the Ambassador Saab as well, because I want to I want to dissect the mentality that makes it possible for former Indian generals and brigadiers to be paraded on the screen as hate mongers. And I'm going to come to you, sir, but let me go back to Ambassador Saab. Sir, right now, something else is happening, and that is Kulbhushan Yadav hearing. And from what we hear, Indian hackers are trying to actually sabotage the transmissions wherever they are taking place. But is it not true that this happening and India's this attitude at a moment when such a crucial hearing is going on exposes India's face further?
Well, it does, of course, expose India's face. Kulbhushan's confession speaks for itself. I think he has completely spilled the beans about what the Indians have done and have been doing in this. And this is only the tip of the iceberg. Let's remember this. This
is the one we caught.
This is the one that's been caught. There may be others, and there are definitely others that are not being caught, and they are there. And so
Ajit Doval, sorry to cut you, very proudly says that he spent 7 years in Pakistan in disguise.
Well,
so I mean, if he was here, anybody can be.
So this is something that we have to acknowledge, that this kind of thing happens, and we must continue to be vigilant about all this. But speaking about this particular case, yes, they are trying to demonstrate or trying to, which is pointless actually. In the final analysis, it's pointless to do these kind of activities, like the foreign office spokesman's account was hacked, it was
suspended or something,
whatever. So, but these are pointless things, because at the end of the day, the court will decide, and I'm quite confident, inshallah, that what will happen in this court is what happened in the UN Security Council in 1948.
Okay.
When the Indians themselves took this issue there
Yeah.
and found out that the Security Council decided in favor of Pakistan and the Kashmiri people.
Right, right. So that is a possibility. And the humble submission right now is when we listen to all this narrative, this hate coming our way, one thing that I need to, and I'm asked to explain to the citizens of the country when I do program, is when a country is saying that we are ready to work with you and we want to be your ally, you have to snatch something from them. You have to conspire against them. Pakistan has been saying that we want to be partners. We want to work together. Regions rise and fall together. So we want to be part of an integrated region. Why does India feel compelled to keep on hatching such conspiracies?
You know, I served in New Delhi in our High Commission for almost 6 years.
Right.
I was dealing with India in the Foreign Office for several years as well. And I will share with you my view. Okay. I think the first and foremost reason is that Indians in their heart of heart have not accepted the creation of Pakistan.
Okay.
Right? I mean, that's why I've always said that we can have working relations with India, we can have cooperation with India, but we should not think of having any friendship with India because they are not ready to be your friends.
Right.
Number one. Number two, Pakistan is the only country in this region that is not that the Indians are not in a position to bully. The Indians see themselves as a regional hegemonic power.
Right. They have bullied Sri Lanka, Nepal, other countries.
So all the other
Maldives.
neighbors, the smaller neighbors, are being intimidated
Yeah.
by the Indians, and they have very few choices. Pakistan is the only country, despite the separation of East Pakistan and the creation of Bangladesh, we have proven that we will not be intimidated by the Indians, and we have the capability to withstand their pressure tactics. That's something they don't like.
Yeah.
And thirdly, I think, which is particularly true of this government, as I said in my earlier comments,
You're talking about Modi, right?
Mr. Modi's approach towards his own system of governance is based on hate, is based on hate mongering, provoking
Right.
this kind of anger within his own people,
Yeah.
and the target is countries like Pakistan and issues like
Stoking hatred.
towards Muslims and others like Christians and things like this.
And when I come back to you, sir, I have another question regarding law of diminishing returns, and I'm going to ask you that. But let me go back to Isa Naqvi. Isa, you still have to explain to me, how is it that a people is friendly, but their media is hostile, and yet what drives them, the media, is TRP or the rating system?
Look, this is an ugly rat race.
Okay.
What happens is that any incident that happens, all these Indian channels, I've like met a lot of Indian journalists, and when you are in conversation with them individually, you are talking to somebody, they are not that jingoistic. They do not follow that hysterical behavior that you would see. The same journalists, when you see them on screen, they behave differently.
Okay.
And this is a requirement from their channels. If some instructions are coming in that we have to
From the
create a
bosses.
hype, from the bosses, we have to create this hype, we have to create this hysteria, and if this is exactly
I don't know whether it is misconstruing or construing, but can I construe that means that India's capitalists, businessmen, are hostile towards Pakistan?
the people who actually backed Modi to become the person who comes with the title Butcher of Gujarat, the same
Pakistan
people.
is not Gujarat, right?
No, I'm talking about the businessman who supported Modi to become what he is today.
Yeah,
Like,
they might have done it because
So
they were
they
tired of Congress's infightings.
no, the point is that now it's the in charge at the moment is Modi and BJP.
Right.
So it's their policy that is being implemented. The country that calls itself the largest democracy in the world doesn't allow an area which is supposedly a two-tongue of that country. It doesn't allow the entire population of that area to perform, to go for Jummah prayers,
Right.
to bring out processions during Muharram.
Yeah.
There is a complete shutdown of internet, information, newspaper and TV in that part of the country.
Right.
And still they call them that
So
they are the
there is
largest
something
democracy.
in there. And here's another question regarding media. You and I have been career journalists and we have been reporting for quite some time. The question is, whenever we are shown a video of an alleged confession, right? Remember there was from Karachi, one person in the prison sang, and we kept on actually pulling it apart, kept on examining and discussing whether it was real or it was somehow manufactured. What would you do if you were shown another video regarding India? Would you not actually explore whether it was created or whether it was manufactured?
Now this is exactly what happens,
Right.
that the moment
Okay.
an incident happens.
I'll have to interject here. Shah Mahmood Qureshi, the Foreign Minister of Pakistan, is with us on telephone. Shah Mahmood Qureshi sahab, thank you very much, sir, for joining us. Sir, your response to how India has reacted to Prime Minister's speech yesterday.
Well, I wasn't surprised because I was not expecting anything positive, simply for the reason that they are doing whatever they are doing according to a design. And the design is to get maximum political mileage out of this incident. They are not willing to investigate the incident. They are not willing to share information. And yet they want to point fingers at Pakistan and they want to accuse us and they're leveling allegations against Pakistan. And we had this inkling and we had this feeling even prior to this incident that just before this government will get to some kind of this adventure. And I've demonstrated that, and it's on record that the P5 ambassadors based in Islamabad were called to the Foreign Office and they were briefed that this could happen. I was in Moscow, and in my meetings with the Foreign Minister of Russia, Mr. Lavrov, I said, I have this feeling that India is up to no good and it could be doing something mischievous. And now you've seen exactly that has happened. So what could you expect? Prime Minister made a very constructive, a very forward-looking statement. Unfortunately, it was rebuffed.
Right. Shah Mahmood Qureshi sahab, not only Prime Minister, even you also made a very welcome statement. But the question now is, if India continues its posturing, what is the way forward for Pakistan, sir?
Well, Pakistan has diplomatically engaged. We are in touch with different capitals of the world. Our missions have been instructed to give Pakistan's point of view. The embassies and the envoys based in Islamabad have been called and are being called to the Foreign Office to give our stance, to give our point of view. I have written to the Secretary General of United Nations for him to play his role to de-escalate the situation. So we are doing everything possible on the diplomatic front. On the, Prime Minister in his policy statement yesterday has made it very clear that India should be careful. If, God forbid, they do something, stupid, and they sort of undertake a strike, a surgical strike, or something like that, Pakistan will retaliate and retaliate immediately. They should remain in no illusion that we'll ponder over it or we'll be thinking. No, we are clear. But we want peace. We do not want to escalate things. We want to live in peace because we are engaged in reconciliation and the peace effort on the Western Front. And the world knows that. Pakistan is completely dedicated to the restoration of peace in Afghanistan through a process of reconciliation. Now, why would we want to be distracted from that undertaking that's in process and get involved on the eastern side? We want things to remain calm, and we want the world to recognize that India is being irresponsible. They are playing the role of a spoiler, and what we have achieved in the field of sort of containing terrorism and reversing extremism, they are trying to fan that. They should look inwards and see why the situation in the Indian-occupied Kashmir is consistently deteriorating. Why did, you saw the graph of casualties rise in 2018. Why is that happening? They should look inwards.
Right, sir. What would you say to the reports that Kashmiri people are being attacked by Indian mobs all over India?
It's very unfortunate. It's very unfortunate for political purposes and for political designs. They are banning communalism. This is very dangerous. The BJP government is destroying what India used to fathom once upon a time being a secular state. They are compromising on the secular image of India. And today, extremist elements and extremist forces have taken over. The Hindutva mindset is governing India, and that's very dangerous.
Right, sir. One last question, sir. I understand that you're busy. Regarding UN's response, you have written a letter. We have heard that the Secretary General is ready to help in de-escalating. But the problem is, letter has to be written from both sides. Do you see a possibility that India might also seek his counsel, sir?
See, if they're sincere, and if they're serious, then here's an opportunity. They should engage. We have said, if you want to talk about terrorism, we're willing to talk about terrorism. If you want to talk about outstanding issues, we're willing to talk about outstanding issues. If you feel you want an investigation, share actionable information and evidence with us, and we are willing to cooperate. But if you do something stupid, then be ready for a response. I think the world has seen that we have taken a very, very reasonable position. War is never a sensible option. Never. And as the Prime Minister said yesterday, it's easy to start one. It's difficult to conclude or contain one.
Yes, sir. I know that I said it is the last question, but one last question, sir. Regarding your vision and your government's vision of the region, what kind of region you foresee if India starts to cooperate?
Well, we want to see a peaceful region. We want to see a region that is prospering. We want to see a region where investments are attracted, where jobs are created. Majority of the population of Pakistan falls in the category of youth. They are looking towards a brighter future. They want job opportunities. They want employment generation in this country. We want to concentrate on fixing our institutions. We want to improve governance in Pakistan, and we want to eradicate corruption. Now, if we want to do all this, we need peace in the region. So what our objective is, a peaceful neighborhood.
Right. Shah Mahmood Qureshi, Foreign Minister of Pakistan, it is always a great pleasure talking to you. So thank you very much for your time. Let us come back to the studio. You have listened to the vision of the government as well. Isa, if you want to respond to the second question regarding the evidence, very quickly do so. Then I have to.
Now what happens is that like anything happens in the Indian media has like some recipes already prepared there,
Yeah.
and they come up with direct allegations on Pakistan. Now the saner voices would say that yes, immediately this is a pattern. You see when Uri happened. When did it happen? Just 2 days before the General Assembly, UNGA was to meet. When did Pathankot happen? When Pakistan's Foreign Secretary was to travel to India for talks. When did this Chitti Singhpura happen? What was the terror boat saga?
Yeah.
Now, and what has happened now?
My
No, when
goodness.
when
Thank you very much for reminding me of Terror Boat, because that was the stupidest episode in our collective history. Media goes bonkers, accuses Pakistan is there to sabotage India. Indian government is also in a frenzy, and then it turns out to be nothing.
Yes,
Right.
and this is okay.
Right, Brigadier Saab, although brigadiers are also general in US forces. Brigadier Saab, your take on Indian military establishment, especially the former soldiers. Why do they behave in a manner that I've never seen any other general, any other officer behaving, including, the worst possible countries in the world?
Well, it is very surprising. I would have expected them to talk of professionalism and sagacity and maturity. But I tell you, again and again, it comes back to the same thing, that it is the political thought and the style of governance that the BJP and Sangh Parivar has chosen to shape the Indian politics in the direction which is disastrous for them. You see, as a pivotal state, they want to attain the status of a pivotal state in the region. And they sort of half convinced the Americans also. They went and sat in their lap, and the Americans wanted Pakistan telling things tacitly what to do regarding India and all that. And while the Americans were present in South Asia, particularly in Afghanistan, their policies and their statements and their South Asia new policy that Trump has been given was shaped according to what they wanted the region to be regarding India and Pakistan to behave as a peripheral states, as Ambassador Akram has said. That was not to be. It was very naive on their part to adopt a strategy which was bound to fail.
Right.
You cannot, in strategic principles, you cannot reinforce a failure. You need to maintain direction. You need a vision for a longer time. If you want to be a regional or a power or any country that you want to be effective, this is not the way that we will isolate Pakistan.
Since you use the term, sir.
But regarding this Bakshi fellow, war is a very ambivalent thing. War is not a mathematical.
Plays really very strategically.
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
The thing is that they started a war on the killing of a prince in Vienna and Austria.
Okay.
And what happened to the world? And when I see Modi speaking to the Hindu gatherings and all those people with saffron, the bandits, I remember the speeches of Hitler really prior to Second World War. That is exactly what he was telling the Germans.
Okay.
And
I just give you an example. I give you an example of General Bakshi and others, and I don't want to actually make him a larger than life fellow, right, character. But immediately after our Prime Minister, I saw their clip. He is asked to comment on it. He said, I didn't watch it. And then anchor actually feeds him a line which is quite distorted. And then he says, look, Prime Minister of Pakistan is saying our soldiers are dogs. They are this, they are that. I mean, come on.
I
This
think
kind of stupid
If
behavior.
you really look at coming to Imran Khan's video talk regarding this Pulwama thing,
Sure.
I think it is typical of Imran Khan as Prime Minister of Pakistan. In very simple, few words, he conveys the meaning which is megaton.
Yeah. And it was quite,
All this while, I think Pakistan Foreign Office has been saying, and the state of Pakistan has been saying that we will talk on Kashmir. They said, no, we will talk on terrorism. And in one sentence, Imran Khan said, okay, let's sit down and talk about terrorism.
Begin anyway. Yeah, that's a very,
So
very
that-
good,
Indeed.
statement. But I have to come back to you, sir, and the law of diminishing returns. I understand that Narendra Modi usually, or BJP or RSS, stoke the anger, hatred before elections, and usually it works. But usually they have a kill before the elections take place, and that's why they become very successful. This time, it seems that you mentioned that there is ambition of being the image of being muscular and then impotence at the same time. They don't seem to have that many options on the table, and there is considerable time to go before the elections. I mean, if this anger keeps growing, is it not going to actually eat up BJP itself?
I think it will if they don't do anything, which is why my concern is that they will try something.
Okay.
It could be some, they will definitely try and provoke some kind of terrorist attacks.
Okay.
We should be ready for that.
Right.
There could be another so-called fake surgical
surgical
strike,
Sponsored.
Okay.
something of that nature, which they can then claim that we have taken
Hasn't
that
this speech categorically, the Prime Minister's speech,
Our Prime Minister's
our Prime Minister's lowered the threshold?
It has lowered the threshold internationally, which makes it difficult for India to act in this way.
Right.
But then, as you say, you connect it to Modi's re-election
Right.
campaign, and already, people are beginning to question.
Right.
You talk tough. What have you done? So he has to show something.
So is it not smart to start shifting the focus right now?
It would be.
Instead of actually doing it 2 months later when the monster is there and it actually eats you up, it devours you.
It should have been the first reaction,
Right.
not to exacerbate the situation to a point of no return.
Right, sir.
But my concern is, now, I may be wrong, but my feeling is that he has crossed the point of no return domestically.
Okay.
And if he does not do something, then he's going to lose votes. And
Right.
That's his fear.
And that's why
That's what the media is telling them.
election is a reason good enough that wars, Brigadier Saab, should be waged.
He'll do something limited,
Yeah, but the,
which he can claim is a big deal.
okay.
Right? Like this, the
Surgical-
surgical strike.
Yeah,
I mean, what was the so-called surgical strike was actually intensive
shelling across
artillery
LOC.
shelling.
Yeah.
They can do that,
Okay.
and we will respond.
Okay.
But they will make a big song and dance that we have, that we have achieved this major surgical strike has been carried out. So they will
The
pretend on
shape
something.
of war in modern times is very different than the olden times.
Right.
Like the Ottomans fought with the Romans and Persians fought with the Arabs and all
Hand-to-hand
that. It's a
combat
very
and all.
different thing. The Americans came for a war to Middle East, and what happened to Middle East, it is in front of you. Very few people, tribals in ragtags can defeat a superpower like Afghans in chappal and shalwar kameez and all that, and they've proven that. So war is a very ambivalent thing. It will never happen, but should Pakistan destabilize? Should.
Right.
There are crores of people who want to attack the Indians.
Right.
They should thank their God that Pakistan is not destabilized.
Yeah, but here's the point. When you listen to what Ajit Doval said before his appointment as NSA, he said that don't frighten us with the idea of Taliban attacking us. We'll take care of them after we have taken care of you. Right? So this is
They could not take care of few Afghans which came with Ghori
Right.
and Mahmoud of Ghazna.
Yeah.
So they are far too many right now. The thing is that the Indians have put themselves in a position where they find it politically difficult for them to retreat themselves.
Okay.
As the media is demanding Narendra Modi to perform what he has been saying in his speeches.
Right.
So I think
What does it mean if media is demanding? And I'm going to ask both of you. Isa, first you. What does it mean if media is asking Narendra Modi to do something that was called stupid? Right? What does it mean? It means that somebody around Modi is pushing the media to make this demand? Or is it Modi's own desire to do something about things?
Now, there are two things. One, that it puts a shadow on the manifesto that Modi came in power with.
Okay.
The promises that he had made during the last election campaign.
So he has
the
abandoned
jobs,
so many things.
the prosperity.
No, but he
and
has
the-
abandoned Article 370. I mean, if he can abandon that, he can abandon anything, right?
But now, before, like, for going into the elections and coming up again and, you know, getting re-elected, he has to, like, do away with all what could matter in the election campaign against him. So the polarization is one thing. Then this anti-Pakistan thing, that is the slogan which is going to be used. And the media, when the media asks Modi to do something, look, they have, this part of the world has never seen war with modern weaponry.
Okay. Okay.
Ask the people in Europe who have lost millions and millions of people
Right.
in the
That's a
World War
good
II.
point. And now I'm
They do
told
not
that.
know what a war is. They do not actually know what war is.
And what exactly a
it
nuclear
means, yes,
war
could
might
mean
entail.
for this region.
Yeah. I'm told that we are left with 3 minutes. So, Ambassador Saab, your conclusion, sir.
Yes, I wanted to make this distinction very clear when we were talking about this, and I feel very strongly about this. We should not, in our discourse or in our exchanges with other people, describe or agree to describe the Kashmiri freedom fighters as terrorists.
Right.
They are fighting for a cause that has international legitimacy.
Right.
They are fighting for the right of self-determination. Their struggle is supported by the UN and its resolutions.
Right.
So there is a legitimate struggle for self-determination, and we should not confuse it with terrorism.
Right.
Terrorism is something else, and it is and the Indians are trying and have tried their level best to equate the Kashmiri struggle
With
terrorism.
And this incident actually took out figures of authority, not the citizens, as happens in terrorism cases. Isa, your conclusion. Sir, I'm
Yes,
coming to
my
you. Very quick.
conclusion is again that the people who are trying to project and want to project this hysteria, and they're talking of war, I'll once again say that they do not understand when the cities are wiped out from the face of the earth. What
Right.
happens? The generations and generations suffer, and they are promoting war, which is very dangerous. Their media, their politicians, everyone, when I see on the other side of the border, there are very few saner voices. And I know that there are saner voices as well, but they do not make it to the TV screens. What reaches us is hate. And if
it
they
is
think that
really
hate is going to
horrible.
be
The worst
reciprocated-
kind of hate possible.
Yes.
I mean, obnoxious language. And I mean, I'm astounded. Brigadier Saab, your
I think if you
conclusion.
look at the policy of both the nations, I think Pakistan has got more sustainable policy from which the foreign policy stems and other policies come out. The Indians are adopting a policy which is extremist, which is totally belligerent. And in the annals of strategy, total war, total vigilance never will succeed. Pakistan, I think its policy is more, it has more sagacity. Although a lot of people say that you should not all the time tell the Indians we want to talk to you, we want to talk to you. But as a political policy and a strategy, Pakistan has adopted a policy which is more sustainable in the world.
Right.
And the Indians have been always trying to put the Kashmir struggle into terrorism basket. They had convinced the West on that, but slowly and gradually their atrocities are so much in
mounting,
Kashmir
yeah.
that UN has picked up, European Union has picked up, and the other countries do understand what they want.
Right. On that note, I'm told that we have to conclude the program. Brigadier Tipu Sultan, thank you very much for your time. Isa Naqvi, thank you very much for being here. And Ambassador Zamir Akram, always a great pleasure having you on the show as well. Because while we were talking about India and Pakistan, the comparison that Honorable Brigadier was drawing, one thing occurred to me. India actually fashions itself as the representative of a 5,000-year-old civilization. It claims that it is an institutional democracy, and that it never had military takeovers or any kind of checkered history of democracy. When you compare it with Pakistan, Pakistan had quite an interesting history. It was born in 1947, and repeatedly we had hustle and bustle, sometimes democracy, sometimes not. And usually when this happens, people on the lesser democracies side are supposed to be, more intolerant, angry, hateful, and not that, considerate at all. Now do another thing. Switch on an Indian channel and listen to what we have been saying here. Just tell me which country is behaving like an institutional democracy, which one is showing restraint, mannerism, and respect. And if that doesn't tell you what is going on with Narendra Modi's India, then nothing perhaps will. This was today's program. Thank you very much for watching us. Take care.